Again. Shout out to everybody. This is Kid Shady Gamer Nation in the building. Here to do another video about Charlie Kirk and some of the things that he said. And I wish I could have, did his seen some of his videos before he his unfortunate demise or whatever. But I have to agree with some of the sentiment of my brethren. He was talking about violence amongst black people and how violent we were, but he failed to identify the violence amongst white people, right? And with that failure, he went somewhere and he got shot by a white person. That why are a lot of black conservatives missing that? Why are you guys missing that? Is that us excusing black culture and how fucked up it is and how black people were violent amongst each other? No, it's not excusing that. But at the same time, Charlie Kirk was scapegoating the problems of his community and projecting it on us, or making us the villain, instead of looking into his community and looking at it as an American problem, right? So let's go into some of the videos, the things that Charlie Kirk was saying. All right, let's go into some of the things. Hold on, you want to find a video by itself? All right. All of a sudden now, white America don't want us talking on the dead, but he talked on the dead people. He talked on a lot of dead people. He talked on not a lot of dead people that I've heard him talk about. He talked about what you call it. He talked about George Floyd, and he said things that weren't true about George Floyd, and I broke that down in the video I made it yesterday. He said some things about MLK that was dead, and the conservatives on the right with white people, they said he has a right to critique it, freedom of speech, right? So everybody else could critique the dead so long as it's from the right. But when we critique Charlie Kirk now that he's dead, we're wrong for that. Come on, white people. Let me see. So let me go Pacific. Charlie Kirk from black people. Like, I don't want to find videos where other people are doing the thing. People being violent. Am I saying that black people should be celebrating his death? No, I'm not saying any of that. How black people should be addressing this is similar to what I'm doing. Shit, you can't even find. I don't know why black students are being targeted by white people. All right, so you know what I'm gonna have to do? I'm going to have to, unfortunately, use other people's videos. I'm done doing commentary on this one. And like, black people are conservative. I get it that that's your position. And I'm neither liberal nor conservative. I'm balanced, right? I did vote for Donald Trump, but I voted for Donald Trump. I didn't vote for the Republican Party. I voted for Donald Trump because I believed in Donald Trump. Right? Now, some of my stances are conservative. Some of my stances are Republican. But I'm not. Here's the thing with me, right? I am not going to be a part of a party that's going to say things that are wrong or incorrect and not speak up and say something about it. I don't care if we conservatives, we're on the same side. If you say something incorrect or something that's a lie, or you telling a half truth, I'm going to correct you. Simple as that. I'm not going to be anybody's token Negro. There's some clips. There's a clip here. Ugh. The only clips I can find is clips of other people telling the damn thing. Charlie Kirk. Black people. And some of the videos that I was finding yesterday, for some reason I can't find them today. Oh, so I think I can answer this question here that he said. I wish I was up there. So let me share this. So he's debating a student. This is why it's important for Black people to know history, your own history, before you debate it.
Okay, I have more of a view of Thomas.
They're not, and they're over.
A lot more in common in this country than the media would ever believe. No. We'll have a father around. Only 1 in 4. That's the number. 75%, about 70%, right? And have a better society is been able to overcome such evil, horrors, and injustices. Here's my perspective, and I want to hear what you have to say. Is that the number one way to keep people out of poverty, lower the crime rate, and have a better society is whether or not you have a mom and a dad around, which we agree that's an ideal.
Yeah, I agree with that, Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. And so what happened in 1964 is that 25% of Black youth were raised by a single mom. Today, it's nearly 75%, about 70%. So that means that 1 in 4 Black kids will have a father around. Only 1 in 4.
He said today.
That's the number one issue happening in the country, and it's not because of systemic racism. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay, hold on. So I think
Hold on. I got a response for that. He said today. He said those stats applies today. That's what he said. Where? All right, here's one. He said today. Now, some of these stats, so he's not true that he's not lying. And he said during 1965. Now, ironically, he's not bringing up Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society. The reason why that happened was because, and I broke this down in previous videos, right? I broke this down with Bill Clinton. The video I did about Bill Clinton, I broke this down, I think, yesterday. Well, he's not bringing up, and I'll probably do it today, too, again. But let me do it like this way. So he's correct, right, about what happened during 1965. What he's not bringing up as the proper context. During 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson with the Great Society said that he'll have these Negroes voting Democrat for the next 100 years, right? The welfare state, all these things, incentivize Black. So this something was structural that happened. This was something, when people say something systematic or structural, it means what the government was doing, what the structure of society, the laws, the policies that was passed, right? So the laws and the policies that was passed by Lyndon B. Johnson incentivized Black women to be single mothers, to not pick a man. Then when you talk about NAFTA and when you had a lot of the industrialization coming that were being outsourced overseas, right? When you talk about those things, a lot of black men who had jobs that were able to work in industrialization jobs without a college degree, or they just did a high school diploma, those jobs were leaving America. So because of Lyndon Baines' Great Society incentivizing women to now be not like you couldn't have a man to get certain benefits from the government, right? It encouraged black women to be single. So that's what he's not bringing up. I don't know why he's not bringing it up. If this is a conservative thing and you're attacking the leftist narratives and you're attacking the Democrats, that's something you should have brought up, Charlie Kirk. Now, here's the thing. All this myth. All right. Now, 61% of black women aged 15 to 49 have had their biological child. 46% of black men aged 15 to 49 have fathered a child. By their 40s, these numbers climb to 81% for men and 87% for men. So that means that by the time black men hit their 40s, that's when they start having children. You understand? But 46% of black men aged 15 to 49 have fathered a child. 61% of black women aged 15 to 49 have had a biological child, right? This shows a gap. Fewer black men reporting fathering children compared to black women reporting motherhood. The NSG notes that underreporting by men, particularly those not living with their children, likely contributes to the gap. BlackDemographics.com. Childlessness amongst men. According to NSFG, 55.2% of men aged 15 to 49 have not fathered a biological child, right? Now it says underreporting, right? A lot of black men don't know if the kids are theirs. Because a lot of times the black women, they're having children, and sometimes they don't tell the pops if the children is theirs. Because the black women are trying to get benefits from whatever government they have. So they're not telling the pops who the kids is, for the pops to even report the child. And again, a lot of men don't know if the child belongs to them, right? Because now he has to get a DNA test from that woman. You know what I'm saying? Living arrangements of black children. Roughly 42% of black children live with both parents, while 51% live with a single parent, right? So 42% of black children live with both parents, while 51% live with a single parent, mostly mothers, right? 58% of black fathers live with at least one of their children. 72.7% maintain regular contact, right? So 58% of black fathers live with at least one of their children. 72.7% maintain regular contact with their kid, right? Right? Now, of course, black women are going to report when they have a child because they need to get the benefits, right? Most black men might still become fathers by their 40s. The gap narrows as men age, reaching 81% by middle age, right? Children living arrangements show that over half of black kids live with single moms. However, many fathers are still involved, even if not co-residing. So even if they're not co-residing or living with the mother, they're still involved with that child, right? This is the objective facts. Metric. Ever had a biological child? Black women, 15 to 49. Black, when it comes to black women, 61%. Black men, 46%. Right? The data confirms that not all black men are fathers, aligning with the 46% figure. And many of those could still become fathers later. The discrepancy between the percentage of mothers and fathers appear partly due to underreporting among men, and possibly due to non-black fathers in the same cases, but that's not proven here, right? So it's possible that you have, even though you can't prove it because they're not doing the stats on whether the fathers are black or white, you're just assuming that the fathers are black because that's how relationships are when it comes to race. Like most people are going to mix and mingle with their own kind or their own race or their own birds. Birds of the same feather flock together, right? So they're not gonna measure it. So it's possible that you got white men in there. There might be a small minority of them in there, but it's possible that there's a lot of there's a minority of white men, Latin men, non-black men in that picture get women pregnant. And not necessarily to blame black men for it, right? Children's living situations show lower co-residence, but father involvement. So even though the father is not living with that child, he is still involved in some shape or form with the kid. Right? So children's living situations show lower co-residence, but father involvement remains substantial among those who are fathers. So the father's still involved even though he's not living with the kid, which is what happened a lot of times in, I want to say, the 90s to 2000s, because that's what I can speak for, because I'm 32 years old. I'm 33 years old, my bad. Right? A lot of fathers, they were there. It's just that because black men were getting TANF checks, EBT, and WIC, black men couldn't be there because, the people from the TANF check office or the people from the welfare office is going to check up on the child and the mother. You know what I'm saying? So you couldn't have a father in the house. This was something that Lyndon B. Johnson put in place with the Great Society, right? Objective facts. The statistics refer to births to black women, where the mother is unmarried, not the proportion of women themselves. The father's race is not specified in the CDC reports. It could be black men, white men, Hispanic men, Asian men, or others. Some women have multiple children out of wedlock, which inflates the percentage. The 70% figure does not automatically mean all black men are absent or irresponsible. Charlie Kirk. The public narrative often wrongly frames black men as solely responsible. Non-black fathers are included in the statistic, though the majority of fathers are likely black men due to population patterns. Like I said, birds of the feather flock together. Fatherhood in black culture. Survey shows 46% of black men aged 15 to 49 have fathered children, compared to 61% of black women reporting motherhood. Now, of course, the women are going to report it because they want to get benefits, right? 51 to 55% of black men report having no children. The underreporting is likely, especially for non-co-resident fathers, right? Now, what does that mean? The father, he might be responsible for one of the kids in the house, but the two other children might not be his. They might belong to other dudes because that's the hustle black women be playing, right? A lot of people outside the culture may not know that, right? You can have a father that is responsible for one of the children of the house, but the 3 or 2 other children don't belong to him or not biologically his. They belong to other niggas she's dealing with, or 2 other dudes she's dealing with. That's how that goes in black culture. So what's happening is that the worst of our culture is inflating the statistics and representing the majority of us. Even though the most of us are not engaging in that, the worst of us is representing the majority of us, which is a problem, black people. Because now Charlie Kirk can take the statistics that's being generated by the worst of us and say all of us are engaging in it, right? So that's something that we as black culture have to fix. By their 40s, a majority of black men eventually father children around 81%. Many black fathers do not live with all their children. Roughly 42% of black children live with both parents, while 51% live with a single mother, right? Now, that's because that's 51% living with the single mothers. That doesn't mean that the father's not there or he's not involved with that child in some shape or form, right? It reflects structural and demographic realities, right? So when they say systemic or structural, it's talking about the policies that were passed. It's talking about the laws that were passed. It was talking about the laws that were in place that cause certain things in black culture when it comes to black people, right? Lyndon Baines' Great Society, then Bill Clinton's NAFTA agreement, taking away jobs from black men or shipping them overseas, right, with NAFTA, now makes black women not look at the responsible black man as somebody valuable to follow because he's not economically sound. So what black woman does now, because she knows she could get benefits from the government with a kid, she's not going to pick the low-tier irresponsible black men. And low-tier irresponsible black men are not most of black men, as I'm trying to show you, right? So she picked the low-tier irresponsible black men to get pregnant by, so she could get government benefits. That's afforded to her because of Lyndon Baines Johnson's Great Society with the welfare, the TANF, EBT, all that stuff. So it's encouraging black women now to be irresponsible and to be single mothers because there's a benefit from it. We're being rewarded to them by the state. They're not picking black men who are picking responsible black men, because even the responsible black men, even though they're plenty, they're not economically stable because of the NAFTA agreement, the losing of the Detroit's auto industry. A lot of jobs that black men were able to get, they're not able to get because the manufacturers are being outsourced and shipped overseas. And now at the same time, a lot of these brothers, responsible brothers, they can't afford to adapt to the college economy. And then when they try to get work in corporate America, EEOC documented a lot of the hiring practices and patterns, are showcasing you that they're gatekeeping the jobs from black men. But they're hiring black women. They're giving black women work, and they're giving white women work. So now black men have to compete with white women and black women for the same work or work resources. And then they're showing you that the reason why they were hiring a lot of white women and black women is because white women are minorities and they get a tax benefit and they're women. Black women are triple because they're black, they're women, and they're minorities. So now they're getting hired over black men for a tax benefit. So black men got to compete with that. And already with the biases for hiring black men. And I think I'm going to show that pattern here with the EEOC. I have it somewhere in my PDF notes. So watch this. Some black men historically have chosen to have children with non-black men. I referenced the sperminator case, a Jewish man who impregnated multiple black women, which highlights that non-black men also contributed to the out-of-wedlock births. There's a cultural tendency to place disproportionate blame on black men for child outcomes in media and public discourse. Within black communities, some men may choose not to remain involved with the mother or child, which adds to the narrative of father absent, but this is not universal in black culture, right? 70% out of wedlock births equals births, not women. Not all black men are responsible for these statistics. Fatherhood participation is underreported among black men, particularly non-residential fathers. Non-black fathers exist in the data, though likely a minority. The narrative of black men's fault is overly simplified and often ignores contexts like non-black fathers, underreporting, and structural factors, right? Now, what you could have is you could have black men who are stepfathers in black culture. All right. So just that's that dynamic too, right? The numbers are concentrated. 46% of black men aged 15 to 49 report having fathered a child. 61% of black women aged 15 to 49 report having a child. This creates a gap. More women are mothers than men are fathers. Indication that all black men are contributing to the out-of-wedlock birth. It's a minority of men doing the majority of the childbearing. Within that 46%, a small percentage of men are having multiple children, which inflates the overall birth statistics. Charlie Kirk, you were an intelligent individual, and the supporters of Charlie Kirk, who are white conservatives, you claim to be intelligent. Why have y'all not taken the time to dig into the stats and find the nuances that I have done? All right. Surveys suggest underreport non-residential children. So the 46% could be slightly higher in reality, but it's still far from all black men. Many men either don't know about all the children they fathered or choose not to report them, right? Non-black fathers exist. Cases like Ari Nigel, who fathered one. So even if, let's say, in actuality, is the 46% is 50% or 49%, there's still a 51% of black men who are not fathering children, who are not creating children. And even with that underreporting thing, there are black men who has one child by that mother, and she has two kids by another nigga. So why would he report the kids that don't belong to him? He's going to report the one kid he's responsible for. All right. Cases like are in the jail, the sperminator who fathered 176 children show that non-black men also contribute to the out-of-wedlock births among black women. He is extreme, but he still illustrates a point. The out-of-wedlock issue isn't exclusive to a black male phenomenon. Media culture bias. Black women on media often highlight black men's absence, but rarely provide context about non-black fathers. Underreporting by men, the concentrated nature of fatherhood and a minority of men father the majority of children. You're pointing out a key hypocrisy. Black women often name and shame black men, but don't report non-black fathers in the stats. You know what I'm saying? So black women are not reporting non-black fathers, even though they're in the stats. All right. For argument, a minority of black men are fathers, yet they are disproportionately blamed for 61% of black women having children. Some black women are having children with non-black men, but this contribution is mostly ignored in public narratives. Extreme outliers like the sperminator exist, showing irresponsibility isn't unique to black men. The narrative and the underreporting could be by non-black men. The narrative that black men are solely responsible ignores data and the context, including underreporting, which could be by non-black men too, and non-black fathers. Paternity establishment and child support. In New York, a man is not legally so this is the laws and stuff, right? I'm not going to go into that. These are important. You can pause the video and you can read them yourself. This Bradley Amendment mandates once child support is ordered, it cannot be retroactively reduced, even if later DNA testing shows the man is not the biological father. This law prioritizes the child's financial stability over the biological relationship. So that law is very important. I'm not going to go into that right now. Breakdown of black fathers and their children. According to the data, among black fathers, 61% have one child. A smaller percentage have two or more children. A very small percentage have four or more children. So this is 66% of the 46% of kids that are 66% of the 46% of black men who have children, right? Smaller percentage have two or more children. A very small percentage have four or more children, right? This is some more laws right here. You can pause the video and you can read them yourself. Same goes for here. This one is crazy. Right? You can pause this and read this on your own right here. You can pause this and read this on your own here. And then this is going to be something I do in another video. Frequently highlighted stories about absent black fathers, broken families, and black men failing to provide. Frame black men as irresponsible, lacking accountability in relationships of fatherhood. Sometimes promoted the idea that black women were victims of black men, which created a public perception of black men as undesirable or untrustworthy. Impact on black men. So this is the 80s and 2000s talk shows, right? These narratives are amplified and normalized across mainstream media, contributed to the social stereotypes influence on non-black communities perceive black men. Created a cultural framework where black men's masculinity and desirability were undermined. Right? So this was like I built this PDF to counteract certain things that are being said by black women, right? And now conservatives are repeating these, right? Without doing the further homework or research, just like what black women were doing. While the term active black father isn't a single statistic point, 2213 data shows that 70% of black fathers living with their children engage in daily care activities like bathing, dressing them, and a higher rate than white and Hispanic fathers. So, Charlie Kirk, why are you not talking about the lack of white fathers in the household? Because black men are currently outdoing them, according to 2013 stat and data, right? Remember, you said today So that video you were debating on college campus, I think that was. Let me see the date when you posted that video. This came out 9 months ago, Charlie Kirk. So 9 months ago, and this had 1.1 million views. Remember what you said?
Misjudge.
1 in 4 black kids will have a father around. Only 1 in 4. That's the number one issue happening in the ground. Only %. So that means that 1 in 4 black kids will have a father around. Only 1 in 4.
So y'all are taking stats. Maybe y'all taking stats from the old shit. Mind you, he's specifically attacking black men. He's not attacking black women. You have to ask why. Maybe you're afraid to attack the golden calf. You understand? Like, I get it. If the stats that I presented to you showing that black men are not the solely ones contributing to the out of wedlock births of black women, and black men are actually being responsible today, but maybe you're drawing from stats from a time of old. All right.
That's the number one issue happening in the country, and it's not because of systemic racism. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay. So I think I misjudged you at first. Like, I inherently same page that we know what the
more in common in this country than the media would ever believe.
No, definitely, right? And
a lot more in common in this country.
That's what I mean. We are on the same page that we.
So black men, this is what I have to take accountability for and be responsible for. It's what a lot of when we're debating people, we have to be confident in what we're saying, and we have to have the knowledge and the information and the facts. Like I'm presenting to you here on the stage, right? This would have been difficult for me too, to be in front of a bunch of people and debate a point. So I'm not going to cap, but we have to do a lot better when we're debating people and bring the information and the facts to counteract the points, right? It's easier for me to say that I could have debated it because I'm on the computer screen, and I have the facts here in front of me, right? This kid, he didn't have the facts in front of him, and he's nervous, and he's in the crowd full of MAGA people. You understand? I don't think he knew enough.
Know what the problem is, and that's what I mean.
You would ever believe
is as digital
than stuff and over policing. I believe there's not enough police in black neighborhoods. You're going to disagree with that. Let's not even get into it, okay? But I think we can ask a question.
So you said there's not enough policing. So now we're going to get into another argument. First, let me finish the fatherhood thing, right? So Charlie Kirk, why are you not advocating for fatherhood within the white communities or Hispanic fathers? Black men are outdoing both white men and Latin men, according to ABC 10, right? And mind you, this is in 2023. A growing trend of resident black fathers. So why are you not speaking about the 60% of white men? Why are you not speaking about their underperformance? Why are you only speaking about black men? Right? Daily care activity. So let me read the rest of this. All the recent statistics from the fatherhood.org show that the proportion of black children living without a resident father was at the 34-year low in 2023, indicating a growing trend of resident black fathers. So the black men are there in the household with these children, Charlie Kirk. So you said today, you said this is as recent today. Daily care activities. A 2013 CDC National Health Statistic report found that 70% of black fathers living with their children bathed, dressed, or helped their children with the toilet every day, compared to 60% of white fathers and 45% of Hispanic fathers. Eating meals. Around 70% of black fathers living with their children ate meals with them every day. Homework help. 41% of black fathers help with their children with homework every day. Talking with children. 72.7% of black fathers spoke with their children about their day several times a week or more. Talking about today. What the fuck happened to my camera? What Charlie Kirk is talking about today. He's talking about black fathers today. I get it. If Charlie Kirk was in the the 1960s, he was speaking, it would have, with the boomers, it would have been true. But he's talking about the fatherhoods of today. keep the argument to today's black fathers. Today's black fathers doesn't line up with Charlie Kirk's talking points. And you know what this does, white people? You could have a fatherless issue going on. You could have a murder rate issue going on in your culture, and you will not fix it because one of your own is specifically targeting black men. Right? Like we're gonna sit here and not talk about the child molestation rate in white culture being done by 60% of the group. Come on. 72.7% of black fathers spoke with their children about their day several times a week or more. Data on black fatherhood and residency. Deceased absence. Decreased absence, right? The proportion of black children growing up without a resident father reached its lowest point in decades in 2023, according to the National Fatherhood Initiative, right? So, remember in the last PDF presentation, I said that fathers are underreporting. Well, if they're more involved when it comes to being a resident father to their children, that means that they're reporting the kids, right? Increased residency. Black children have a higher rate of living with a resident father than at any point since 1989. Notes, fatherhood.org. So y'all pulling statistics from 1989 to make 2000 present day points that don't align with the present day black father. Living with fathers, 58% of black fathers live with one or more of their children, right? Addressing the myth of absent father. The CDC data and decrease in numbers of children living without a resident father challenge the outdated myth that black fathers are inherently absent. Many sources like Momentum emphasize that statistically, reality of involved black fathers is often overshadowed by negative portrayals by Charlie Kirk. Daily caregiving among co-resident black fathers. Among black fathers who live with their children, about 70% bathe, dress, diaper, or help with their child. Use a toilet every day. For comparison, 60% of white fathers, 45% of Hispanic fathers. This is by CNN. These are the sources. All right. Even when not co-resident, many black fathers maintain involvement. For example, a significant share talk with their children several times a week, eat meals, or do regular interactions. According to the Pew, 67% of black fathers who do not live with their children see them at least once a month. This is compared to 69% of white dads in similar situations, and 32% of Latino dads, right? A recent study of unmarried, non-Hispanic black fathers, low income, showed heterogeneity in involvement. The researchers identified several profiles of father involvement, right? High involvement, non-resident, moderate involvement, highly engaged but low in cognitive simulation activities. Non-resident, very low involvement. Med. Children whose fathers were in high involvement profiles show better social emotional function, right? So that's saying that the more involved a father is with the kid, he's going to have, more social, and he can function more emotional, right? So that's talking about the father's end. Black fathers are more likely than white fathers to not live with all of their children. On Pew study found 44% of black fathers do not live with their children, compared to 21% of white fathers. So now this says living arranged absent isn't always non-involvement. So just saying 44% of black men do not live with their children, right? But living apart does not equate to being uninvolved. Many non-resident black dads still see children, communicate frequently, contribute to caregiving in various ways, right? What involved means, there's a variation in what constitutes to involvement. Daily caregiving, frequency of visits, emotional support, financial support, reading, etc. Some studies focus on certain activities. Example, reading or helping with homework. Others are general presence. Co-residence matters a lot. Fathers living with children tend to report much higher levels of daily hands-on involvement. Non-resident fathers' involvement tends to be lower, but still meaningful in many cases, right? So that's that. I want to address. So when it comes to the role of the father, black men today, and as far back as 2023 and from 2026. So even up here, data and data, right? Much of the cited data comes from surveys in the mid-2000s, example 2006 and 2010 or earlier. Trends may have shifted somewhat since then. So they give stats and data from 2006 and 2010, but we're talking about currently, right? And I showed you something earlier where it says that that the residential Black father is increasing. So Black men have improved when it comes to our fatherhood role. So Charlie Kirk, and you did this video with this brother 9 months ago. So why did you not look at the updated facts? Remember, these stats were being put out in 2023 about Black men and their involvement in fatherhood in 2013. Why did you not notice? So 2013 is 3 years after 2010, right? Let's look at the main thing he's talking about with violence. He's talking about a Black man being under police in Black cultures, right? This is what he said. Let's look at this. Police capita for violence, for violence, right? Per capita means per unit of population. In this context, it often represents X number of deaths per 100,000 people. Right-leaning commentators sometimes acknowledge police violence against white people, using per capita statistics to show that white victims exist. Example, they might say more white people die at the hands of police overall than Black people, which is technically true in raw numbers because white people are the majority of the population. So see how they can use per capita to show, to humanize them, to legitimize their claim? But let me show you how they use per capita to demonize us, right? Example, they might say more white people died at the hands of police overall than Black people, which is technically true in raw numbers because white people are the majority population. However, when applied to Black communities, the same comment is rarely normalized by population size. Instead, they focus on percentage of police killings versus total deaths. They cite raw numbers to imply Black communities are responsible for higher rates of police interactions, right? For white victims, per capita is used to show legitimacy and humanize them. For Black victims, Black per capita is ignored or twisted to imply personal or cultural blame. This is what white people do. So when police are killing you, it's to humanize you. When police are killing Black people, it's to say it's our fault and it's our responsible, right? But of course, police are going to have, if our communities are already over policed or being policed, of course it's going to have higher interactions with them. But if they're under policing in your communities, the police interactions are not going to be so high with y'all, right? Blame Black communities for crime. Conservatives often say Black people commit a disproportionate amount of violent crime. They use per capita statistics selectively to stigmatize Black communities while ignoring the historical and structural causes of high incarceration rates or crime rates, segregation, poverty, or underfunded schools over policing, right? Now, this is what I mean when I say structural problems or systemic problems. Systemically or structurally, because of over-policing, underfunded schools, poverty, and segregation, this caused America not to care for Black culture, right? Meanwhile, when white communities are victims of police violence, structural context is acknowledged. This is what I'm saying. So when it's Black people and we acknowledge structural context, it's looked at as, no, it's not systemic racism. It's not structural. But when it's happening to white people, then we understand and acknowledge it's a structural problem. Rural areas suffering from drug epidemics, homelessness, or police militarization, right? So, meanwhile, when white communities are victims of police violence, structural context is acknowledged. Rural areas are suffering from drug epidemics like opioids, homelessness, or police militarization, right? Like what happened during COVID, right? When you have the National Guard policing a lot of rural areas, right? I'm telling them to stay inside their house. Who remembers that during COVID? The double standard. Observation, the same statistical logic per capita is applied selectively to humanize one group and demonize another. Impact on Black perception. This selective application erodes trust. Black communities see statistics being weaponized against them rather than used to understand systematic issues. It creates a narrative that Black people are inherently responsible for police violence and crime, while white victims are portrayed as unlucky or systematically disadvantaged, even when per capita is similar. Hold on, we're going to break down the numbers today, baby. Data isn't neutral. It can be used manipulatively. Objectivity requires using per capita statistics consistently across all racial groups, acknowledging structural and historical factors, poverty, policing patterns, and housing education, separating individual responsibility from systematic influence, right? When these principles aren't followed, statistics are usually ideological rather than analytical. Now, I'm not saying that Black people shouldn't have an individual responsibility amongst our own communities, but at the same time, if you have the responsible Black person being profiled by police officers, like in Jump Out Boys in Brooklyn or Stop and Frisk, which I'm a victim of that, right? And I'm not a gangbanger or street nigga, but a police profiled me just as he would profile a nigga that's wearing a blue flag or a red flag. They didn't see me no different. Then they stopped and frisked me and many other Black kids who were innocent in certain shit. And we're just going to school, minding our business. Right? So this is what I'm talking about. So there's plenty of Black kids who are holding themselves individually responsible, but still feeling systemic influence or systemic whatever the systemic issues is. You're still feeling it. What crime usually encompasses? When conservatives, media, or pundits reference crime statistics for Black communities, they typically rely on FBI, Uniform Crime Reporting, or Bureau of Justice Statistics data. Here's what crime can include. Arrest. Any police arrest regardless of outcome. Example, arresting for shoplifting, drug possession, or disorderly conduct. Important, arrest doesn't equal conviction. Arrest rates can reflect policing priorities or bias, not just criminal activity, right? So, for example, with the stop and frisk era or the Jump Out Boys Brooklyn, I experienced the stop and frisk in like the 2000s, 2010, early 2000s, mid 2000s, for going to school, right? I remember police cars would stalk us. They would park up behind us. We would look back. They would stop. Then we would walk forward. They would slowly creep, nigga, on some shit. And then we would ask them, so do you see us commit a crime or whatever? They would have no answer. Or they would just jump out the car and start frisking us. At the time, we didn't know about law or probable cause or any shit like that. We was just scared. You know what I'm saying? We were just kids going to school, and we were, none of us were gang affiliated. None of us had blue flags, red flags, none of that. So, you know what I'm saying? That's the police bias. And then now Charlie Kirk is going to say that, based on the statistics of the FBI, your communities need to be more police, as according to his logic. Convictions. When someone is prosecuted and found guilty in court, conviction rates are influenced by legal representation clauses, plea deals, and systematic biases, right? Reported offenses, including crimes reported to police such as robbery, assault, burglary, or homicide. No, some crimes go underreported, like white-collar crime. So reported crime is not the same as actual crime committed. Homicide, violent crime, often highlighted because these crimes are considered severe. Homicide statistics are typically divided by race of the offender and the victim, which is where per capita debates often arise, right? Misuse of 12% of the population. Black Americans are roughly 12 to 13% of the population. Consultants say 12% of the population commits 30 to 50% of the violent crimes. Leaving out context, many of these statistics come from arrest data, not actual conviction data. Many high crime neighborhoods are over-policed, producing inflated arrest statistics for Black residents. Crime rates are neighborhood specific, and concentrated poverty, a structural issue, correlates with higher crime. Using these statistics as blunt, racial argument ignores systematic cause and weaponize partial truths, right? So, the communities in Black culture that are being over-policed are poverty. It's not Black neighborhoods as a whole. Like, for example, I'm in Cambridge Heights, Queens. Cambridge Heights, Queens is not the hood. But then now when you go to South Jamaica, Queens, or Queensbridge, that's more the hood. So South Jamaica, Queens, or Queensbridge is going to be more heavily policed. Now, when you talk about Linden Boulevard going into Guy Burra, or then you talk about Merrick, that's parallel, adjacent to me, right? Maybe then. Maybe you could say something about Merrick Boulevard. Maybe you could say something about Guy Burra. And it's not Guy R. Burra, Tommy from Powers. Guy Burra, nigga, a white man, or wigger, or whatever your name is. Guy Burra, not Guy R. Burra. It's Guy Burra. Shit. Or maybe when you go in front of like the Guy Burra, you track the Linden Boulevard going into there, right? Whereas when you're going past like Springfield and Merritt. Because when you go past Springfield and Merritt into that area now, it's more like project area. Like, for example, when you take the Q4 bus, you're going into like Liberty Avenue, you're going into past Merrick. I forgot what I think that's Guy Burra right there. That's like the Q111 area. There's a lot of project housing buildings there. So that project housing built area is going to be more police as opposed to Canberra Heights, where I'm at. Canberra Heights, Laurelton, and then now Hollis is right there too. So you have Hollis and you have Hillside. So those concentrated areas are going to be more heavily policed. And you're going to see more crimes in those concentrated areas, as opposed to Canberra Heights, where not too much crime is going on. Whereas black people live, and we live right next to the small hat people right there. You understand? And then a couple of weeks ago, you had the Palestinians and them going at it. You saw big Palestinian flags laid up. I said, "Oh shit, that be my business and shit, whatever." And so that small hat people, they had to have security guards over there because the Palestinians is like right next to them and shit. It's crazy. But anyway, so that's the nuances that's not being brought up, right? When you have Brooklyn, right? East New York, Brooklyn doesn't make up all of Brooklyn, right? Because you have Kings Highway, you have Brighton Beach, where Brighton Beach you have the Armenians, you have the Ukrainians. I think they have a Ukrainian avenue, I think, or something like that over there. Brighton Beach, right? Then you have Kings Highway, that's Russian and shit, Ukrainian, all them Eastern European people over there. And then you have East New York, Brooklyn. And not all of East New York, Brooklyn is the same. You can literally go down Linden Boulevard in Brooklyn, and you can watch the culture change from Black, Caribbean Black, European, small hat European, Italian. It's like watching a cartoon reel. You understand? So these are the nuances that's not being brought up, right? When we talk about concentrated poverty and what areas get policed and what areas of black neighborhoods are more policed and what black neighborhoods are not being overly policed. Understand? So that's not what's being put into these nuances. Structural and contextual considerations. Over-policing. Black neighborhoods are policed more heavily for minor infractions, increasing arrest counts. So arrest counts does not equal conviction, but it still counts as, it's still included into the fact that, okay, it's still included. So when it says many of these statistics come from arrest data, not actual conviction data. You know what I'm saying? Economic inequality, poverty, unemployment, and underfunded schools create conditions correlated with higher crime, that innate criminality. Now, this I blame on a lot of you black pastors. I blame this on a lot of you black, district leaders or whatever, with your 501(c), whatever you having, that's siphoning resources from black culture, but you're not putting anything back into the culture. I blame this on y'all. I blame this on the black pastor. Because you on purpose with your 501(c) are keeping black people stuck in certain areas. So I blame this economic inequality shit on black people, black pastors, black whatever. Right? Historical legacy, segregation, reliance of mass incarceration, and discriminatory sentencing all affect the historical outcomes we see today, right? So mass incarceration, this was something that Bill Clinton and Joe Biden passed with the 94 crime bill, right? Segregation, that was something that was installed by Southern Democrats, Jim Crow. And before any conservatives say something, the Republicans during 1877 stabbed black people in the back because there was a deal being struck behind black people's back that caused that 100-year segregation of Jim Crow, right? So that's a structural problem that black people could not control. Crime in these narratives is a catch-all term that may include arrests, reported offenses, convictions, and violent crimes. This statistic is used rhetorically to imply inherent criminal in black people, without considering the structural, economic, and historical factors that actually produces disparities, right? I already told you what systemic, I already told you what structural is, and we already told you what economic is, right? And I think I broke down economy. Yes, I think with the Bill Clinton video I did, right? If you go on my channel and look up the Bill Clinton video, I broke down what were the economic situations that happened under his NAFTA. I think I went into a little bit of what Reagan did that also messed up Americans with his college thing he did, right? Bottom line, when you hear phrases like 12% of the population commits 30% of the crime, it's almost always referring to arrests and violent crime data. Sometimes convictions, but never full picture of the societal or structural causes. It's simplistic, misleading, and often weaponized against black communities. The statement often heard is black Americans are 12% of the U.S. population, but commit 30 to 50% of violent crimes. Misleading. It makes it sound like all black people are disproportionately criminal, which is not true. Actual distribution of crime. Crime is heavily concentrated in Pacific neighborhoods, like I was explaining earlier, often urban areas with high poverty, unemployment, and social instability, which I told you I blame on the pastors, right? And a lot of you are like liberal black people. A small percentage of individuals commit disproportionate amount of crime. For example, studies of violent crime in major U.S. cities often find that 5 to 10% of offenders account for 50 to 70% of the violent crime. So that's not even the majority of black men, right? These offenders are usually repeat offenders, not the general population. Implication: the 12% of the population commits X amount of crimes. Statistic is not describing the average black person, but a small concentrated subset. Some of you gonna say, see, it's well, the 5% of you black men are committing 50 to 70% of the violent crimes on the population. Well, we gonna go through it, nickel. We gonna go through it. Sit your pale ass down and be quiet in the back. Neighborhood concentration. Crime among black Americans is highly speculative. I can never say some of these words. Concentrated. High crime neighborhoods often face underfunded schools, unemployment, lack of access to healthcare, over-policing, and historical housing discrimination, redlining. So now, with the redlining thing, right? A lot of conservative pundits and on the right are going to say, well, we did pass laws to outlaw this. Yeah, but it still had an after effect. The redlining that took place when it started for black people, it denied black people generational wealth, the ability to own homes, the ability to create homes that could benefit the millennial generation and Gen X and then Gen Z. So because we're not allowed to establish neighborhoods for black people then, we're not able to benefit from it now. You understand? Conversely, the majority of black Americans do not live in high crime neighborhoods and do not engage in violent crime. So crime is not evenly distributed across the black population. It is localized among specific individuals and areas. Right? This is important. Crime is not evenly distributed across black population. It's localized among specific individuals and areas. Perception versus reality. The media and some political narrative generalize the crime statistics in the whole black population. creating a false impression of widespread criminality. In reality, a small subset of people of high poverty neighborhoods account for a disproportionate share of violent crimes. Most Black Americans are law-abiding and live outside these concentrated zones. So I think I have another PDF in which I am going to show. Not this. To illustrate the point. I think that both the left and the right, I think y'all just playing games with Black people. I don't think y'all really give two shits. I think, and then Black people because we're goofy at oftentimes. Oh, I think this is something different. But this can illustrate the point. All right, so I'm gonna save these two for later. All right. I think I have something else on here. Give me a moment. I have to find them. All right, so that's something different. All right, so okay, cool. So those two that I point up, this come to apply somewhere. All right, so where was I? I was up here. All right, cool. All right, so let me show the graph. All right. So this is so when you talk about NAFTA, globalization, and factory closures, this is something structural. So they acknowledge the structural thing, and their external structure blame. White homeowners, 2008 crash, victim of government regulatory failure. Yes, structural causes recognized. Black communities, poverty, unemployment, incarceration, no, often blame the individual. Black families, welfare dependency, housing discrimination, no structural factors minimized. Right, so I'm saying, so you see the difference and the double standard when it's the right wing getting affected. They acknowledge the external factors, but they won't take the individual responsibility. Because you know why? Because they understand that the structural problem was something beyond their control. They couldn't control that. But when it comes to Black people who historically don't have any control over the structure, it's our fault why the structure failed. And it's white people in control of the structure. So like, and I get it with black people who are conservatives too, but come on, bro. To this one, white person killed by police, acknowledge, normalize per capita, discuss policy. Often yes. Black person killed by police, deny disproportionate impact, emphasize per capita, raw numbers, shift blame. Often no. Black communities in crime, high crime rates equal cultural failure, ignore structural causes. White communities in crime, economic stress, structural decay, often acknowledged. Again, this is the pattern that white people do on the right, like Charlie Kirk. High percentage of crime comes from low percentage of individuals. Crime is geographically and socioeconomically concentrated, not evenly across population. Using the 12% population statistic without context misrepresents the realities and unfairly stigmatizes the broader Black population. Structural factors, poverty, segregation, and over-policing, limited economic opportunity drive much of its concentration. Age and gender factor. Crime is concentrated among young males, typically aged 15 to 34, which is consistent across all racial groups. For violent crime, about 80 to 90% of offenders are male. Right, so this is across all groups. Crime is concentrated among young males, typically ages 15 to 34, which is consistent across all racial groups. For violent crime, about 80 to 90% of the offenders are male. A small percentage of males, around 15 to 10% of that age cohort in high crime neighborhoods, commit repeated violent acts. Neighborhood concentration. High poverty, high employment neighborhoods see spatial concentration of crime. Example, in Chicago, studies show 50% of violent crime comes from 5 to 10% of the street blocks. So this is not Black population as a whole in Chicago. Similarly, in New York and Baltimore, chronic offenders in concentrated areas drive most violent incidents. Key insight. When people cite 12% of population comes from 30% of crime, the reality is a small subset of Black men in concentrated neighborhoods account for most violent crime, not the Black population as a whole. So it's only in concentrated neighborhoods amongst other Black people that these crimes are being committed, not against white people. Charlie Kirk. Implications. Crime statistics are misleading when generalized to an entire racial group. Interventions that target structural poverty, education, and opportunity in these neighborhoods can drastically reduce crime. Public perception often ignores this concentration, creating stigma against broader populations. So now to Charlie Kirk, something just popped in my brain. When you have structural laws that come from Lyndon B. John's Great Society and policies that's incentivizing mothers to be single mothers and get on Section 8 WIC and welfare, and then when you have structural issues like Bill Clinton's NAFTA, outsourcing a lot of jobs that Black men had to support themselves and their families, you have to address those, right? Yes. Should Black men who are already being fathers in their homes today, as I've proven, should they pair up with a Black woman to create a nuclear family? Yes. The problem structurally is that, Charlie Kirk, you have feminism that comes from white women, Marxisms that comes from white people, communism, socialism that comes from white people, that are structural influences that create policies such as Planned Parenthood, such as welfare, such as EBT, such as Section 8, that encourages Black women to be single mothers. And then because you don't have enough jobs in the labor force and gatekeeping Black men from finding jobs because of NAFTA, right? Even if Black men get into a relationship with a Black woman, because of feminism, she's not going to follow. She's going to buck against him. And because he doesn't have the labor or monetary means to support his family, that's a double-sided sword against him. So she's going to buck against him because of feminism. And she's going to buck against him because what? He doesn't have the resources to support the family, sustain. Now, Black men financially are doing better today than they were ever before. And that's an amazing thing, right? But then again, you have feminism there that's telling Black women to rebel against Black men and to buck against him. These are things that Black men cannot control. Black men cannot control white women and feminism. So, interracial homicides. Approximately 81% of white homicide victims are killed by white offenders. This statistic underscores that similar to Black communities, white individuals are predominantly victimized by perpetrators of the same race. Arrest data in 2019, this is recent, white individuals accounted for 69.4% of all arrests in the United States. This includes arrests for various offenses not limited to violent crimes. Aren't white people 60% of the population? So 69% of you, 60% of white people contribute to 69% of the arrests. But Charlie Kirk, Black people should be heavily policed, as according to you. Charlie Kirk. And what sucks is he's not alive for me to challenge him. Interracial homicide. Interracial. Remember. So you have interracial and then you have interracial, which is mean that And so this spelling means happens within the race. So there's different spellings, right? Follow me. Around 91% of the black homicide victims are killed by black offenders. This statistic is consistent with the pattern observed in white communities, indicating that both groups experience higher rates of interracial violence. Arrest data. Black individuals represent 26.6% of all arrests in the United States. This percentage is notably higher than their representative in the general population. This is approximately 13%. Now, mind you, yes, this is high. The arrest outnumbers the population for black people, but also the arrest outnumbers the population for white people. So what does that mean? That America has a crime problem. What also does that mean? Well, guess what? White people are the bigger group. They're the dominant culture. They're the dominant society. Which would have more of an impact? The 13% or the 60% in their arrests? Think about it. If you're the dominant culture, you're the one creating the structure and institutions. You're creating the laws and all these things. But in your culture population, the arrest outnumbers you, and you have the dominant influence. You would have more of an, according to my logic, white people, your arrest rate that outnumbers your population would have more of an impact on society than black culture would, because we're a smaller group. We don't have we're not the dominant culture. Interracial crime patterns. Both white and black communities exhibit high rates of interracial crime, with individuals more likely to be victimized by perps of that same race. This pattern is influenced by factors such as residential segregation and social networks. Arrest disparities. Despite similar patterns of interracial crime, black individuals are arrested at a disproportionately higher rate compared to white individuals. And we already broke that down in specific, concentrated, high crime neighborhoods in black culture, not all of black culture, right? This disparity may reflect systematic issues with law enforcement practices, including racial profiling and unequal enforcement, right? What's the unequal enforcement? Just like the arrest rate amongst white people outnumber the population of white people. Maybe those communities in white America should be heavily policed as there would be with black people, since they're the dominant culture. They're the most influential dominant culture, right? But they're not. Structural factors. The high rates of interracial crime in both white and black communities are influenced by structural factors such as poverty, unemployment, and residential segregation. Rather than inherent racial characteristics, right? Need for reform. Addressing the disparities in arrest rates requires comprehensive criminal justice reform, including measures to eliminate racial profiling and ensure equitable law enforcement practices, right? White population, according to 2020 U.S. Census, this is very recent. Charlie Kirk and his supporters, right? Non-Hispanic white individuals comprise approximately 57.8% of the U.S. population. Black population, the same census data indicates that black or African American individuals make up about 12.1% of the U.S. population. This disparity in population size is crucial when analyzing crime rates, as larger populations can lead to higher absolute number of crimes, even if per capita rate is lower, right? So what does that mean? So because when you use the per capita calculations, because white people are a bigger group, it's going to show a lower rate of crime. But because black Americans are a smaller group and we're in concentrated areas, it's going to show a higher rate of crime. But there's still crime. White individuals accounted for 69.4% of all arrests. And your population size is 57.8% of the population. 69.4% of the arrests. Why is white communities and why did Charlie Kirk not? And they're pulling from the same crime reporting program. Why is he not advocating for white communities to be heavily policed like black communities are being heavily policed or already being over policed? These figures suggest that in absolute terms, white individuals are arrested more frequently due to their large population size. And because they're a large population size and they're being arrested more frequently, they're a bigger threat to the American population than black people are, because we're a smaller group and we're in more concentrated areas. To compare crime rates more equitably, we calculate the per capita arrests. Per capita arrests, right? White arrest rate, 69.4%. Arrests, divided by 57.8% population equals 1.2 arrests per person. Black arrests, 26.6% arrests, divided by 12.1% equals 2.2 arrests per person. These calculations indicate that Black individuals are arrested at a higher rate per capita than white individuals, but the arrests are still bigger than Black people. And look at their population size, right? And remember the different contexts. These arrests are coming from concentrated neighborhoods. White people are more spread out across America. You understand? So they're not concentrated. They're spread out, right? The distribution of population across urban and rural areas significantly impact crime statistics. Black Americans are more likely to reside in urban centers, which typically have higher crime rates due to factors such as poverty, unemployment, and social instability. Conversely, white Americans are more dispersed across suburban and rural areas, which generally experience lower crime rates. This geographic concentration means that even if Black individuals commit crimes at a higher per capita rate, the overall crime rate in predominantly white areas may be lower due to their distribution across less densely populated regions. And it's easier to hide their crimes when they do it. In other words, a white guy can delete a Becky, hide the body, and you might not find the body until 100 years later when she's a skeleton. And now construction companies trying to build a house, and her white ghost is haunting everybody. Absolute arrest numbers are higher among white individuals due to their population size. Per capita arrest rates are higher among Black individuals, indicating a higher likelihood of arrest relative to population size. Geographic concentration plays a significant role in crime statistics, with urban areas experiencing high crime rates than suburban or rural areas. Understanding these factors is essential for nuanced analysis of crime statistics and for addressing the underlying structural issues that contribute to disparities in arrest rates. All right. So these things play a role. That Charlie Kirk, for as intelligent as he was, did not break down the nuances. Raw numbers versus per capita. All right, so I already broke this down. Observation: broke groups have arrest rates higher than their population share. Political narratives focus almost exclusively on Black population, ignoring the fact that the white arrests are higher in raw numbers. Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk supporters. You can't tell me for speaking about the day because he spoke on the day. So because you're dead, we can't give you an objective critique and to correct the mistakes that he made so the rest of you don't continue the mistakes, right? One could argue white people are more dangerous because they make up the majority of the arrests in raw numbers. You can even suggest police targeting white population specific. This is important. I can weaponize the stats and be deviant towards white people like y'all are deviant towards Black people. One could argue white people are more dangerous because they make up the majority of arrests in raw numbers. You could even suggest police policies targeting white population specifically, mimicking how some narratives focus on Black population. The deviant logic is identical to the way 12% of the population commits 30% of the crime. It's framed to stigmatize Black communities. Well, 69% of the 58% of you commit 69% of the crimes. And you're a bigger group. You can wipe out the 12% at any time if you wanted to. But because you're a bigger dominant group and your arrest crime rate outnumbers your big group, you're more of a threat than Black people. You see, Black people, we're a threat to each other with that 30% crime in our concentrated neighborhoods. You're a bigger threat to society as a whole because you're big and you dominate the structure of it. See, I want to say some things, but I'm not going to say some things. I'm going to just let that shit slide. Let it go. Let it go. Be the bigger man, even though white people don't know how to be the bigger people. Black Americans are more concentrated in urban area centers, making crime more localized, predictable. White Americans are more spread out, meaning arrest numbers are higher overall, but less predictable geographically. Because remember, you guys are more spread out in rural areas. So maybe the crimes you commit, we're not going to find out what it is. You can hide that more. Whereas for us, the Black people, we're in concentrated areas, you can predict that. Structural factors. Concentration in high poverty neighborhoods affect crime statistics more than race alone. Narrative bias. Media and political rhetoric tend to weaponize statistics against marginalized groups, not the majority, even if the numbers could theoretically be used against any group, right? So I can weaponize the numbers against white people just like you weaponize them against black people. Statistics are not inherently objective tools for judgment. They can be used to stigmatize, manipulate, or justify policies against whichever population you want to target. This is why context, distribution, structural factors, and per capita calculations are critical when interpreting crime statistics. Takeaway. It's just like how white women keep saying white men are what they like saying. White men, when they say they're raping in white communities, white women say that white men rape them at a higher rate. I could break down how white women are bullshit when they saying that, full of shit when they saying that, because it's not true. I actually have the slide to do that. I actually built up the slide to showcase how white women are full of shit when they make those claims. But why would I do that? Why would I save white dudes when white men from the right, from your own white women, when you like to target us? Right? Because when white women say things, they don't give the complete nuances. Like when they say that that patriarchy is bad and men are inherently dangerous. What they don't bring out is that 95% of the men are not committing the rape or the crimes against women. It's repeated offenders of white men that are doing that against white women. It's not all of white men that are doing that. And I actually built the slide in the presentation to counteract what white women say. Because why am I counteracting what white women say? Because black women repeat that shit and project it onto black men. So I have the slides for it. I have the presentation to counteract it. But now I kind of don't want to. But I'm going to do it to save black men. You understand? But anyway, my point is sharp. If someone applied the same methods used against black communities to white communities, they can make a superficial logical argument that white people are a bigger problem in crime. The only difference is the narratives are selectively applied, showing ideological, not purely statistical or use of data. Right? Which white women are doing this. White women are make superficial logical arguments against white men that are not true. But you white men do the same shit towards black people or black men. Now, black people, we need to have accountability because just a week ago, an elderly black woman was shot in the face by some nigga, and I hope they lock his black ass up forever because he wanted to pull out a machine gun in New York and shoot. So we need some accountability on our end, right? That 5 to 10% of black men in these high concentrated neighborhoods that's committing crimes, being terrorists to everyday black people who are minding their business, they need to get their ass locked up and put in jail. And they need to get snitched on. Because they have black communities who are trying to raise themselves up out of poverty in hostage situation. I'm not making excuses for black people. I'm acknowledging higher per capita arrest rates and crime rates in certain areas. And because of that 10 to 10% of group black men who are gangbanging and causing problems, police look at me as if they represent me, or I am just like them. So black men like me who mind our business, we get fucked up or we get arrested because of or looked at a certain way because of the bullshit that the 5 to 10% of black men are doing. Like the nigga that killed the white girl, the Ukrainian chick on the damn train. Because of what he did, I'm going to look back. Because we're already being pathologicalized or criminalized for the actions of what the worst of us already do. Right? So this is why we need to hold ourselves accountable. The need for internal community reform, including respect for authority, self-policing, and reducing intercrime violence. These are real issues that require protective solutions from within the community, right? So black people, black mayor, black pastor, yes, which is what the conscious community was about. The conscious community understood the structural and systemic problems, but they understood that we have to solve our own internal issues too. we have to hold ourselves internally accountable too, as Black people, Black men and women, right? Accountability within policing. At the same time, there's evidence of systemic and individual misconduct in policing. Stop and frisk practices disproportionately targeted Black communities. Deviant or unlawful officers antagonize people, violate rights, and often face little accountability. This contributes to mistrust between Black communities and law enforcement, which in turn affects cooperation, safety, and community cohesion. Right, the gangbanger, instead of going to the gangbanger and fucking with them, how could you expect the average everyday Black citizen to trust a police officer? And then remember that Black, and then now if you see that Black gangbanger go back into the community to terrorize that community for snitching, right? That has to be taken care of. You know what I'm saying? If you want Black people to trust the law enforcement has to be able to do right by the people, by the law, everyday law-abiding citizen. You understand? And then now, if the law-abiding citizen is going to now snitch on that Black gangbanger, there has to be some results where that gangbanger gets put away, and the people that's following that gangbanger gets put away for a significant long time, go to jail forever, or whatever. Understand? He shouldn't then be released back into to that same community that snitched on him for him to terrorize them for snitching. But Black people, you too have to be ruthless towards them niggas too. As soon as them niggas start pulling up into your community to cause problems, police. You know what I'm saying? Or do what you need to do to get rid of them out of there. So two things need to happen. Law enforcement need to be on the side of the law-abiding Black citizen, and the Black citizen need to be snitching or getting rid of the gangbangs that's there. So two things need to happen. You know, you gotta have a feedback loop that's created. Narrative imbalances. Conservative commentators like Charlie Kirk often emphasize Black crime and inter-crime community problems, placing burden entirely on the community. Downplay or ignore policing misconduct that disproportionately affects Black people. Use statistics in ways that stigmatize community without contextualizing systemic factors. A balanced critique could be acknowledge Black communities' accountability and internal reforms, acknowledge police misconduct and systematic issues affecting Black communities, addressing interconnected nature of crime, law enforcement, and societal structure in America. Right? Why the imbalance matters. Where critiques only target Black communities, it reinforces stereotypes about inherent criminality or cultural dysfunction. It ignores historical and structural context like over-policing, discriminatory practices, and neighborhood concentration. This is important because when you look at stop and frisk and you look at the jump out boys, that was over-policing. And that was based on discriminatory and racial practices. Right? A fair approach would involve both self-accountability and systematic reform, giving a more honest, constructive critique. But remember, Charlie Kirk was trying to speak to his base. So I kind of blame his conservative base more than I blame Charlie Kirk, right? Takeaway, you're not excusing anyone. You're highlighting that true accountability must be dual within the community and within the system that interact with it. Failing to balance both creates one-sided narratives that misrepresent reality and erode trust. Right? There is another thing that I wanted to show. There's two more things I want to show. So, this is it. Look at this. Concentration of crime among individuals. Research consistently shows that crime is heavily concentrated among a small subset of individuals, often referred to as chronic repeat offenders, typically found in findings in urban neighborhoods. So this is it. Chronic offenders, 5 to 10%, 50 to 7% of the violent crimes. Non-chronic minor offenders, 10 to 15%, 20 to 30% of the crime. Law-abiding majority, 75 to 85%, 0 to 10%. This right here It's the majority of black communities, law-abiding majority. So it's the small minority that's creating these percent of the crimes. But they're in what? High poverty neighborhoods commit most violent crimes. The majority of residents are law-abiding. So this is a small fraction within black culture amongst black people. So Charlie Kirk, I don't know, man, but you were speaking to your base. So you were saying things that your base wanted to hear from you to say. So I can hold the base accountable too, but I can also hold you accountable for telling half truths. This one is most important. Peace. Innocent black people are more likely to be wrongfully convicted of crimes than innocent white people. Right? Murder, 7 times more likely to be convicted, 3.5 times more likely to be convicted, 12 times more likely to be convicted. Black Americans are disproportionately affected by wrongful convictions, particularly in cases of murder and sexual assault. Despite comparison, approximately 13.6% of the U.S. population, black individuals count for over 50% of the exonerations in serious criminal cases, highlighting significant racial disparities in the criminal justice system. So, Charlie Kirk, there's obviously a structural problem, a systemic problem with the justice system. If over 50% of the exonerations come from black individuals, you know what I'm saying? And they're being wrongly convicted of shit. Racial disparities and wrongful convictions. Murder cases, black individuals are about 7.5 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder than white individuals. This risk increases when victim is white. Death Penalty Information Center. Sexual assault cases. Black men are 6 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of raping white women compared to white men convicted of similar crimes. And white women. See, white men are probably raping you at a higher rate than black men are, but because they're white and the system is not biased against them, when they do it, they're probably going to ignore it. But when black men are doing it, or it's assumed or it's thought that black men are doing it, it's easy to identify us because of racial systemic things that happened in the past, like with the Mann Act, right? But then come to find out we didn't do it, and we get exonerated from it, right? Overall exonerations as of 2022, over 3,200 individuals have been exonerated since 1989, with black Americans comprising more than half of these cases. Innocence Project. Exonerations by race from January 1989 through December 2013. African Americans, whites, African Americans are 47%. Whites are 40%, Hispanics 11%, Native Americans are Asian 2%, right? So this is from 1989 to 2013. The exonerated population, 8.8 years were spent in prison on average. 1 in 3 were sentenced to a minimum of 50 years in prison. 18% pleaded guilty despite being innocent. 19 were exonerated after they died. 6% had been on death row. 1 in 3 exonerated had the cooperation of police or prosecutors. 22% of exonerations involved DNA evidence. Wow. So this is actually a population. They gave this population a name. And remember, 19 were exonerated after they died. Eyewitness misidentification, cross-racial misidentification are significant issues. A study showed that people are more likely to misidentify someone of a different race, leading to wrongful convictions. Innocent Project. Police misconduct. Cases involving black defendants are more likely to involve police misconduct, such as coerced confessions. Charlie Kirk. Such as coerced confessions and suppressions of exploratory evidence. Innocence Project. So Innocence Project built by white people, Jewish white people. So to Charlie Kirk's points, white people did help black people. So black people, you gotta acknowledge this too, that you have white people that give a fuck about you, right? But Charlie Kirk, to your core point, if white people are addressing that there's systemic issues going on with their own system, why haven't you acknowledged it? Right? Racial biases, implicit biases, and stereotypes contribute to the over-policing and over-prosecution of black individuals. increasing the likelihood of wrongful convictions, equal justice initiative, right? And exoneration by race and crime, right? So white, black, see black, we ain't in that part with white dudes. Sexual assault, homicide, other crimes, all crimes. So this is exonerations. So look at the crimes that we were accused of doing but got exonerated from that we didn't do. The disproportionate number of wrongful convictions among Black Americans underscores the need for comprehensive criminal justice reform, addressing systematic issues such as racial bias, improving eyewitness identification procedures, and ensuring accountability for law enforcement misconduct are critical steps towards achieving justice and equity in the legal system. So the Innocence Project acknowledges that there's systemic issues, and these are other white people, Charlie Kirk, and your base. But anyway, that was my time for that subject today. I am going to do my fault. I'm going to do some more videos on Charlie Kirk, talking about Pacific stuff. Today I want to address his talking points about fatherhood and the crime statistics amongst Black people and how violent we are versus his community. Hopefully this video was, mind you, everything I put in the slides, you can go research it. If you want the slides, I can give you the slides so you can research it yourself. Like, share, subscribe to the content. And remember, we're going to critique anybody, alive, dead, or whatever. You can critique me, right? Just critique me objectively and honestly, and the things that I've done in public, right? Because that's what I'm doing with Charlie Kirk. I'm not critiquing his personal life. I'm not saying that he deserved to die because he doesn't. I wish he was alive so I could debate him, have a chance at debating, to beat him intellectually. Understand? But rest in peace to him. Rest in power to him. Shout out to his family. Hope his family's doing well. Nobody deserves to be assassinated for their opinions, right? Because I could come out and I could be talking to a conservative base, and I could be debunking all their points, and they could say, "Shut up, Negro," and assassinate me. So this shouldn't have happened to Charlie Kirk, because you could have beat him intellectually. But guess what? It wasn't Black people that did it. It was their own. So white people, you need to fight your own. Stop making Black people out to be your enemy. Because we're not doing, we may talk shit, we may do this and that. And even when it comes to violent crime, we're affecting each other. When it comes to violent crime amongst you guys, you're affecting each other more than we're affecting you. So you need to attack your own and stop making Black people your scapegoat for all your problems in society. Anyway, this is Kid Charlie Gaming Nation. Like, share, and subscribe.